We'll try this number 2. I'll call this meeting to order. I will now call this, please put all your phones on vibrate or off. In order to call attendance, I will now conduct a roll call by calling each councilor's name. Councilors, when I call your name, please say here. Councilor Aquilina.
Here.
Councilor Beauregard.
Here.
Councilor Wagner.
Here.
Councilor Bruno.
Here.
Councilor Danch. Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Hoyle.
Here.
Okay. Now do the adoption of the agenda. Mover Councilor Hoyle, seconder Councilor Elliott. The agenda has been amended to allow delegations to speak within item 4.1. That the meeting to consider agenda dated March 7th, 2023 be confirmed as amended. If any councilor has a question about the agenda, please raise your hand now. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous. The closures of interest. If any councilor has a conflict of interest they wish to disclose, please raise your hand now. Okay. Thank you. Municipal drain. We will consider with item 4.1 Bitterman Municipal Drain Meeting to consider 2023-35. Drainage Superintendent Mrs. Alana Vanderveen is in attendance to respond to councilors' questions following the engineer's presentation. Mover, Councilor Danch. Second, well, can't have Councilor Danch.
Sure.
No, you're seconder. Councilor Hoyle. Seconder Councilor Bruno. No written submissions pertaining to this item have been received by the clerk's office. Can you confirm that, Madam Clerk?
That's confirmed.
Okay, well, I'll pass it on to our drainage superintendent, Mrs. Alana Vanderveen.
Hi, through you, Councillor, or through you, Deputy Mayor, to Council. So the Biederman Drain has been around for some time. Some of our records state that that show that it dates back to 1903. We have some of the report from then, and we also have drawings from then. Our most recent report on the Biederman Drain is from 1979, and that was completed by D. Ingram. So we've had a number of issues over the last few years through OMAFRA granting that OMAFRA has stated that they're not going to give us grant because our assessment schedules are not up to date. So that was part of the push for appointing Mr. Widner through Spree Engineering to redo our report. So Mr. Widner was appointed in 2019. Late 2019 to complete a new report because of the issues of COVID and staffing and all the fun stuff that went with it. We finally now have a report. So prior to the completion of the report, we had a number of meetings that involved all the members of the watershed, those that chose to attend. And there were a number of discussions, and those discussion points were taken into consideration for the completion of this report. So this evening's meeting, the meeting to consider, it's not only to consider the report, but it is also to hear Mr. Widner's presentation of what he has to offer about the report, and it is also to appoint 2 members of council to sit on the quarter revision. Along with the 2 members from Port Colborne, there will also be a member from Wainfleet and a member from Welland, which some of the lands are in those municipalities as well. The tentative date for that meeting is currently scheduled for April 17th. Should a bylaw be passed, provisionally passed, a secondary mailing will take place, which will inform all of the members of the watershed of their appeal rights. So there will be a couple points of appeal, and including in that mailing will also be the provisional bylaw, which is passed tonight. So before I pass this off to Mr. Widner, what I'd like to say is that although people or members of the watershed have the rights to ask questions after the presentation and after council has asked any questions, at no point is council to listen to anything about assessments this evening. If there are questions for assessments, that will be held strictly at the quarter revision. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Widner.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brandon Widner. I'm with Spreed Associates out of London. So she has the plan up on the screen. Hopefully everyone has at least received the report. The report is detailed, and hopefully you guys have looked through it, but there are some plans which show, so this is the main plan of the drain, which shows where it is. So as Elena said, we were appointed in 2019 to do a new report on this project. In 2019, we did do a drain report on the skeleton drain, which dumps into this drain, which essentially is the north portion of it. So the skeleton drain is at the top, if you could see. I know this plan's kind of blurry on this screen, but it serves the top part of Wainfleet, a little bit of Welland, and it comes down and lands on the other side of Highway 58 and dumps into the Biederman drain. The Biederman drain itself starts at the canal. It heads towards what is, I believe, the dump. And then cuts across on an angle and ends up in what is the Wainfleet bog. And then the head of it is at the back end of the quarry on Biederman Road. So in 2019 we were appointed. There was a number of surveying done. There was also an on-site meeting, which in this case was at the Operations Center. That was in February 11th of 2020. So everyone was invited to attend. But this is for a long time. It had some maintenance done to it a number of years ago, as in brushing, but it hasn't been dug for quite a number of years. And there, of course, is some environmental significance here because we are draining a large amount of the Wainfleet bog. The drain actually parallels or is on the edge or the fringe of the bog as it goes in the Wainfleet. So what we have here proposed tonight, if you go to page 2, so this shows the excavation that is taking place. So on the top left corner of this screen, that is where the canal is. The canal fluctuates during the winter, as you all know, so the water level changes. And I can't control that, nor can the drain. So there'll be times where the drain is surcharged with water. And as a whole, if you see on the top of the screen is Port Colborne's portion of the Biederman drain. So that's all the way to Town Line Road in Wainfleet. So as you can see, the grades are quite flat, but as a whole, the canal pretty well dictates the water all the way back to Highway 58. So there isn't any substantial digging taking place in that portion. Mainly, we're trying to get the drain brushed so we can access and maintain it, remove debris, but we're not trying to excavate it deeper because there's no gain because the water level of the canal is controlling it. As you get in the Wainfleet, now this is essentially the bog area. Yes, there's some material to come out. Not substantial amounts of material, but there is some. We're trying to get it back to the original design, which was 1979. I don't believe it's been dug for quite some time. I know Mark in Wainfleet, he's the drainage superintendent there. They did some maintenance work, but it hasn't been dug per se. So as it continues on, the bottom half of the screen is the Wainfleet portion of the drain. There's also a branch which corrects something that was done in 1979, serves one of the properties. There's also a branch B, which again is some cleanup of the 79 report that serves another one of the properties. These are in Wainfleet's side. There's also something called the sugar branch. So the sugar branch, essentially, if you go back to page 1, This is a section 4 of the drain. So there's a 78, which is an improvement, and section 4 is a new drain. The Sugar Branch is located at the end of Invertoge Drive. There's an existing ditch there, which serves the facility, which is what, Jung Bungalowser, is that how it's pronounced? So their water, stormwater, essentially outlets into this, and it then goes down to the Biederman drain. Now, that is in a lands that is owned by the city, but this incorporates it as municipal drain. So when you go through our report, you'll see a number of things. That basically summarizes the work. We do have permitting from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. This drain is considered a Class E, which is somewhat sensitive, but they did give us a permit through a Class E authorization. As for the species at risk, there's a number of them involved in this project, and each municipality, in this case Wainfleet and Port Colborne, both have mitigation plans to deal with those. So when you summarize all the work together, we're going to have approximately 7,600 meters of excavation. All the work is broken down in the report on an individual property basis. Now, so if you have any questions regarding your property, that gives you a brief summary, but if you have something direct to ask about your property, don't be afraid to reach out to one of the drainage superintendents or myself. So the total cost of works here, we're looking at about $518,000. That's including administration and all those fees, allowances. It's also including some, let's say, work that's already been completed and we're trying to recover, which the municipality has on the books for doing a fair amount of maintenance work. So the drain was brushed in 2020. There was some money spent there to brush a large portion of it. That's included in this to recapture it, because currently the municipality, the 1979 report isn't accurate enough to bill it out today as per OMAFRA's requirements. With this report, you're going to see a number of new culverts getting installed as well. They're mainly on, there's a couple of roads in Wainfleet, mainly Biederman Road, a new culvert at Town Line. There's also some cleaning of a number of culverts in the Port Colborne portion. So that'd be Elm Street, the Harbor Line Railway, which is operated by the municipality, Stonebridge Drive.
Some of them roads, you can't go through them?
Which
All
road?
mud? Why are you gonna put a culvert?
Excuse me, Mr. Delsavini.
Go through it.
Excuse me,
I'll
Mr.
let the municipality answer that one.
Excuse me, although you'll have the opportunity to ask questions at a later
Oh, I'm.
time, okay?
Nope.
Thank you.
No problem. So as well, you know, there's some work on Highway 58. They're being assessed for that as well. Now, it's my understanding the MTO is going to clean that culvert out themselves. So in that case, they can reduce their assessment. When you get further in the report's broken down. You have the beginning. There's then 4 sections. There's allowances. So allowances are for damages and right of way for each person's individual property. That's basically the right to access and the damage of usually, in this case, crop damage, or in a lot of this case, it's woods. That's some compensation for the damage that's going to take place. That's broken down for each section of the drain. The cost estimate is broken down in individual sections, so you can see how the costs get derived. But you know, the main one in here is we are trying to recover some money that's already been spent. So right off the bat, we have about $60,000 we're trying to recover. There is then the assessment for construction. So this starts on page 20, Schedule C, and it breaks down the costs to every property on the drain. So there's 2 ways we assess these drains. There's benefit and outlet. Benefit is for works usually along the drain. So, you know, if you own the drain that crosses your property, there's benefit to that for better control of the water. Outlet is a per acre charge for how much you contribute to the drain. And it's assessed on where you are on the drain. So if you're at the top, you pay for the whole drain. If you're halfway down the drain, you're only paying for the portion you use. But that being said, every property assessed on the drain is included in this. So in Port Colborne, there's a number of properties, mainly subdivisions. They're all included in here. Some of them are even, I would say, proposed subdivisions. So they're all included there, and it's broken down. And if you have any questions regarding assessment, you know, we can happily answer them on an individual basis, because there are a number of properties. And it is broken down by Port Colborne, Welland, and Wainfleet. So, that being said, there is also a next part, which is assessment for future maintenance. So once this project is complete and built out, in the future, if the municipality does work, they can go to this maintenance schedule, and then the work will be built out according to that. So the numbers in it are a percentage. So if you spent, $1,000, you could see what your portion might be. But that's for future works, not works at this time. I guess this is a very comprehensive drainage project. It's quite large, and there's a number of, let's say, moving parts, and there's a lot of players. So, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have. We have been working on this for a number of years, and there's a lot of landowners. And some are quite large, like the MPCA is one of the larger, they're owning most of the watershed. A lot of the people on the Skelton drain have just went through this process in 2019. I have a feeling they know the steps, and they'll be happy to see some more improved drainage. But I guess if anyone has any questions, and I'll let the mayor kind of run that, be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Brandon, for your presentation. Councilors, does any councilor have any questions on their presentation? Okay. Does any councilor have any comments on the item? Councilor Bogner?
Thank you. Through you to maybe Alana. I notice on here there's an option if the city of Port Colborne does its own work, and also if Wainfleet does its own work. How does that, is that actually an option, or you already figured it out and it's in the, we'll just either be charged if we do our own work? Is that how that works?
So, what you're referring to is special assessments. So, in a special assessment, you're charged actual costs. So that's, for instance, the culvert cleanings. Like, for instance, Highway 58, it's MTO, but it's the same principle. So they have a cost, if you look in the report, to do the work. I'll just turn to it here so I can see what the numbers are. So, for instance, the MTO is the last one. So I have the cost to do that work of $15,900. There's some administration and the net HST. If they do that themselves, then we essentially reduce their assessment by $15,900. But they have to do that entity of work. So Port Colborne is very good at doing their own work. Then all those specials would just be assessed actual. But I have to do it as if this project would be tendered.
You good, Councilor Bogner? Okay. Councilor Bruno?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Through you to the consultant. In each property's assessment on the drain, is there a component that isn't just their frontage on the drain? In other words, is there specific, and then there's some overall costs? Where I'm going with that is just to Councilor Bodner's question. When somebody like the MTO does their own, are they paying, is their in-kind work cover more than just their section, if indeed there is a overall cost that's not equated to their frontage?
So, I guess yes and no. When I was talking about doing the work, those are special assessments under Section 26. So they still will pay, if you go into this, that was a special assessment only. In that case, it was $20,300. But Highway 58 is still assessed approximately $5,600 for the work downstream. Now, this is all based on estimated costs. There's a number of costs in here that are fixed that we can't change, like the previous work done. The municipality here is unique in that you guys do a lot of the work yourselves. through your drainage program, and Wainfleet does as well. And of all the places we work in Southwestern Ontario, you guys are the only two that, let's say, have their own excavator that digs drains. And that being said, you've always, let's say, beat the numbers in this book by a long shot. But I have to do it as in this was going to be tendered. And if the municipality does do some of the work themselves and they save, everyone does save. So if the project, for instance, the construction component is less than my estimate, everyone saves proportionally. The municipality will save more for the road crossings they do themselves, that kind of stuff, but it's a two-way street. If the municipality spends more, then everyone pays more. But
Go ahead, Councilor Bruno.
Thank you. And just on the NPCA, you mentioned how large a acreage that they put into the drain. So because they're a conservation authority, they still pay proportionately their share. There's no discount for them being a government agency or a conservation authority. They pay the same as a resident would pay proportionally.
well, we have ways of adjusting assessments, let's say. So what we do is for acres, so we have what I would call a runoff factor or adjustment factor. So if land is woods, we assess it at half the rate of farmland. If you have a built-up house, you're maybe 1.5 to 2 times farmland. If you're a road, you might be 2 to 4 times farmland. So yes, there's some savings if you're woods, but there's no discount. If a farmer has woods, he gets the same proportion. Now, you know, I can only assess lands. MPCA owns a large number of them. I believe there's some owned by the province as well, but everyone's treated at the same. I don't look at the owners, I look at the property.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bruno. Thank you, Ray. Councilors, any other questions or comments? Okay. Okay, thank you. There are no delegates registered to speak on item 4.1, but is there anyone in attendance from the public who would like to speak to this item? Okay. Mr. Delcimini, please proceed to the podium at this time and state your name and address. And you can ask, because we're on stream, you have to be in front of a microphone, Aldo.
Never been here before.
I know you haven't.
I did have several questions, but I think I'm only going to have one. You stated that the ditch has to go through your land to pay for it?
For benefit. There's benefit and outlet.
Yeah, but okay, now if that ditch is not nowhere near my land, then I don't pay nothing.
Nope, I did not say that.
Well, you said the ditch goes through the land, didn't you?
No, I said there's 2 ways of assessment. There's benefit, and that's if the drain goes through your property, and then there's outlet,
Through,
which everyone
okay.
pays.
It doesn't go through my property, so I
So
don't.
you pay outlet.
What do you mean I pay?
So
I have
everyone,
nothing to do with it.
so everyone that contributes to the drain on an acre basis contributes.
You're talking to me, not to him.
That's not.
Sorry.
Well, I'm talking to
He's talking
everybody.
to you.
Oh,
I think
okay,
you should
I'm
sit in
sorry.
the chair with the microphone.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know. I asked the question.
I'm talking
Yeah.
to everybody that's in this.
Brian, do you want to
watershed
sit at the desk over here?
Some
Use
staff-
a-
some- 'cause
some of the
we have
staff
people on
does.
Zoom, they have to, sorry.
Yeah, people on Zoom have to be able to see it on camera, Aldo. That's all.
So I guess everyone that's in the watershed area contributes on an acre basis. So if you contribute to the drain, you pay. That's under outlet. The people that have the drain running through their property pay on another term, which is called benefit.
So why are you saying 690 Barrack Road has to pay?
So I guess if we brought the map up, I could see where 690 Barrack Road is.
Because I got a letter in the mail, that's the only reason why I'm here.
No, I understand that. So if you live on Barrack Road,
But I live on the south side. I got nothing to do with the ditch.
so the land on Barrack Road drains down to the drain, which then in turn gets to the main drain. So I guess, you know,
But I pay the city for that. Because when I had the ditch fixed in front of my house, the city came to fix it.
that's correct, but that
So
water.
then I'm paying the city. So why should now I pay you? Well, you're making me pay twice.
Well, I guess in turn, you're still paying the city.
And now you want me to pay you. Right.
Excuse me, although clarification, he is hired by the city.
Well, whoever he works for, I'm sorry. I'm
And
saying
whoever
again,
does the
because it's
ditching,
him.
whoever does the ditching is hired by the city to do the ditching. Because your property drains to the main drain, you have to pay a certain percent because you do have drainage off your property on Barrack Road.
Yeah, what's that got, still got nothing to do with me, the ditch. Who says it goes to the ditch? It can go down into the field. It can go into somebody's farm over there, like, you know? If I was on the ditch, I'd pay, but I'm not on the ditch. I got nothing to do with the ditch. That's what I'm trying to say. So why all of a sudden you need money? The ditch has been there for what, you said 1903? And all of a sudden you need money to do something that you've been doing for hundreds of years, and boom, we need money now.
Although probably what we'll do is, we have a quarter revision, I suggest you bring it to the quarter revision. These are the people that are gonna make the decision on.
Okay, can you tell me what's going, send me letters and tell me what's going on then?
You will definitely be notified.
Okay,
I'll even call you personally because I know you.
do what you want.
Okay,
Let them know you're calling.
yeah. Any other questions, Aldo?
Well, I have millions of them, but right now, I want that one.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Delsamini.
Well, you're welcome, Mr. Bagu.
Is there anyone else in the public? Please come up, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Anyone around here?
Please just state your name and address and push the red button.
My name is Sandra Kendall. I live at 673 Barrack Road. And my question is, why, as city taxpayers, why all the city's not paying on this, like we do for everything else that all the city does? Like, for instance, I pay school tax, but I don't have any kids going to school, but yet the rest of the city doesn't pay for this.
That's a very general question. Lana, do you want to answer that?
Through you, Acting Mayor. So the Drainage Act was set up in a way that, way back when, it was basically a gentleman's agreement. Certain people wanted their properties drained for farming, and people would agree along the drain, wherever it may be, to outlet their property. Over the years, one person in the middle decided, we don't want to drain anymore. They didn't care if their property was wet. So that's when the province stepped in and said, hey, municipalities, this is now for you to look after. So the municipalities are looking after the drainage, and everyone within that watershed is assessed for the drainage.
So who owns that drain? Do I own it or do the city?
It's owned in common by all of the members of the watershed.
Well,
The
then
munici-
maybe they should be cleaning it.
The municipality has been tasked with the responsibility through the province to do the maintenance on drains. So once they've been passed by council and we have a bylaw for that, then it is now up to the responsibility of the municipality to do maintenance on that drain.
I've lived on Barrack Road, and I have the 4 properties down back for probably 25 years, 30 years. And we've never, ever had a problem with the drain. Out front, we do our own drain. No city, nobody ever comes and takes the leaves out of our ditch or anything. We do all that. The drain is running perfect, so why do I have to pay thousands of dollars now because I'm along the drain?
So as I had said before, the OMAFRA does a review, Ontario Municipal Farm and Rural Affairs. We submit the reports to them for a granting program. If you're a farm parcel, you would receive a one.
It's marshland.
Yes.
Not
but there-
farm.
So when the Drainage Act came about, it was typically for farmland. Over the years, with the expansion of urbanization into the rural area, that's more when it became an issue, because rather than having 4 or 5 large properties, we have many smaller properties. I forgot where I was going. Can you ask your question again? You forgot where I was too.
I wanted to know why we have to pay for it, like, that's what it's coming down to. And if I can say, okay, I don't want the drains, I'll just get them plugged in. They're on my property, I own them, right, you say?
It's a common system that's owned by many people.
Should be all Port Colborne. So we're part of the city. What are we, because we live out on Barrack Road, we're not considered part of the city?
Yes, and
I'll pass it off to the CAO.
Sure. I don't know if I can do a better job through the chair to the presenter. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a drainage person, I'm just a guy who works at the city, but in many, many years of experience with drainage, it is a provincial piece of legislation that is designed to regulate the control of stormwater as it pertains to certain areas of the province. So Wainfleet, Port Colborne, and Fort Erie are very flat areas. If we were at the top of a hill and at the bottom of the hill was a river, there wouldn't be a problem. But we need engineered systems to take water away from flat land. Every drip of water that falls from the sky has to go somewhere. So there are watersheds. The watershed is that giant diameter on the picture that's on the monitor above your head or on the screen in front of you, and your property is in the watershed along with all of these others. The law in Ontario, and this applies everywhere, Chatham, Kent, way up north, Wainfleet, Welland, and so on, is that the people, the owners of the property in the watershed pay for the amount of benefit they get from the engineered system to take the water away from their property. So, and they pay, different than property tax completely, based on how much benefit they get. So the 100-acre parcel pays, and it's not perfect science, but 100 times more than the 1-acre parcel. But it can't go on the regular taxes of the city. It has to be charged to the benefiting property owners. It's a highly regulated process that has many checks along the way in the Drainage Act. We're not choosing to go down this road and apply this process. We have to apply this process in Wainfleet, and I see a few Wainfleet folks here. They're accustomed to this because it happens all the time. Farmers rely on, well, everyone relies on the drains, the system of drains to get the property, or sort of the water off the property. So we're following the Drainage Act. The engineer is mapping the watershed, and he in this case is determining the benefit of each property. So I don't know if I've said that properly. I'd appeal to the I don't know, and I'm certain that doesn't make you happy, but it is in fact what exists in Ontario and what we're applying in this case, not by choice, but because that's the legislative process that we have to follow. I can't say for sure how much your property benefits, and I can't say for sure how much your bill will be, but it's been my past experience that the 100-acre farmers pay a giant bill, and the 1-acre, or in your case, 1-acre single homes, or in your case, a couple of lots, pay a very small bill. No guarantee, don't come back later and say you thought I said if you were getting a small bill, but we're following that process, and I'm not sure if Mr. Widner or Mrs. Vanderveen wants to complement that answer and maybe help with the explanation, or if you have more questions.
Well, it's just that the drain is running really good on my property. So you say everybody that owns it has to be responsible. Okay, I'm being responsible. If mine was all clogged up, I'd say, oh yeah, come in and clean it out. But it's not. We make sure, and the same way with the front, we make sure that it's not clogged up.
Sure, through the chair and to the presenter, I understand completely, and if the opposite was true, if, I can't say for sure what your property looks like, I've never been there, if there were 10 fallen trees in the drain, you wouldn't pay for those 10 trees on your property. You wouldn't pay for those 10 trees to be removed. Everyone along the entire drain, or at least upstream from where the trees are, would pay the cost of that. So if that was $1,000, you might only pay $10, and other people might pay $990. These are just example numbers. So the system is the benefit, anybody who has water going in. And so I've been in cases, I remember in Font Hill, a bunch of mansions on the hill got a drainage bill, and the owner said, oh, we don't have a problem with water. Well, of course they don't, because the water was going down the hill, but the people, they had to pay along with the people who were at the bottom of the hill who were catching all of their water coming down the hill. So it doesn't, for a new person hearing about drainage for the first time, it doesn't sound like common sense, but it is in fact the best way to apportion the cost of carrying water away from flat land.
So you're telling me this has nothing to do with the city of Port Colborne?
So the city has an obligation under the Drainage Act when a drain exists or when a new drain is petitioned to administer the process. We'll hire the construction company, we'll hire the engineer, we'll mail the bills. The money flows through the city, but it doesn't go on the tax levy for the city. So you're paying for yellow lines being painted down the street and sidewalks and street lights and tree trimming and parks and everything.
On Barrack Road, we don't have any of that.
Well, you're paying for it at H.H. Noel and everywhere else, but we can't charge that to the general levy of the municipality.
No problem. Is there anyone else in attendance that'd like to speak on this item? Okay, the recommendation of this report is as follows. The Public Works Department Report 2023-35 be received, and that the mayor and the acting clerk be directed to execute a bylaw to provisionally adopt the Bitterman Drain Municipal Drain Engineers Report, dated January 12, 2023, prepared by Brandon Whitner, P. Engineer of Sprite Associates, Engineers and Architects, under Section 4 and 78, Chapter D17 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, and that councilors, do I have volunteers for any councilors to be on the Court of Revision? Councilor Bruno. Councilor Hoyle. Do we have a alternate?
I'm not putting my hand, say yes. So do we need an alternate? Yeah.
Yeah, yes we do, yeah. No problem, I'll volunteer to be an alternate, how's that? Okay, so that Councilor Bruno, Councilor Hoyle, and Councilor Bagu as an alternate for the city of the Port Colborne be appointed to sit on the Court of Revision. Thank you. And finally, that the acting clerk be directed to request that the city of Welland and the township of Wainfleet each appoint one representative to sit on the Court of Revision. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Motion is carried. Under bylaws, mover Councilor Bruno, seconded by Councilor Aquilina, that item 5.1, the Bitterman Municipal Drain Bylaw, be provisionally adopted on the 7th day of March 2023. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Motion is carried. I now adjourn this meeting. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting to consider. The meeting is now adjourned.